problem is not proving that UFOs exist. It's when you begin to expose the energy and propulsion systems behind how they're getting here.
What scientists need to do is they need to look at the hardcore evidence, decide that, oh my gosh, ETs are real, and then get over that. Then you can start extrapolating.
These sciences have been around for decades. They have been ruthlessly kept secret because of the power of a centralized petrodollar oil, gas, coal system. And right now, these misanthropic sociopaths are running the planet into the ground.
Governments have not gone far enough, so we've decided that as people to form our own movement.
All right, game on, roll one.
What we are attempting to achieve is a device which defeats the perpendicular force of gravity.
We have so many modes of converting quantum vacuum energy or zero-point energy.
This possible EVE was found in the Atacama Desert.
We have the best scientists that are going to be doing the DNA testing.
We have 1,150 teams of CE5 ambassadors.
I can attest to the fact that real phenomenon happens here.
And this is probably the most important thing going on this planet today, and yet nobody talks about it.
Puede saber los años y todo.
If we come together, we can make this happen in a matter of months, not decades. For this is the destiny of humanity.
Hey, how are we starting this episode?
You just started it.
No, I didn't.
You just kicked it off.
I was doing. Okay, anyway, whatever. All right, welcome to the Cosmic Sandbox, and we are here with Matt, Geoff, and Jason. I'm Geoff, and we just got out of the Sirius premiere, the film that Dr. Stephen Greer has been working on for the last year, and we've all really been looking forward to this night, and it was a pretty exciting night. And I'm going to hand it off to Matt here. I want to know, where do you want to start with this? Do you want to just get these? We started off trying to talk about one word, sum it all up type thing. That was your idea. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we could just hit on the big notes first if you want. Yeah, we literally just got back from downtown LA, where it was hosted at LA Live, and it was quite a turnout. A lot of people there to initiate the people's disclosure of whether or not aliens actually exist and the proof of them, basically. Not only do they exist, but how are they getting here?
Yeah, which I think is the big question. And even in the trailer, I think it's not even a question of whether or not aliens are coming here, whether or not UFOs are real, or any of this stuff like that. It's accepting that, which is expressed well in there, and it's one of the reasons I did like it. It's accepting that, moving on. Next question.
Yes.
How are they getting here? What is the technology? Why is it not being revealed? Getting into these bigger questions, because it's a successive line of questioning, and you can't even begin to consciously consider these other implications or questions until you get past the other one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you like the film?
Yeah, I didn't. I went into it. This is my. In terms of my hopes or what I wanted from it, that was met well.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to see anything or learn anything that I don't already know, because I'm pretty heavy into this stuff in a sense of my research and what I've read and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so
you're also the only person here who's read through the entire Disclosure Project book that Dr. Stephen Greer has put out already.
Yes.
I've skimmed through it, and you may have peeked in it a couple times.
I'm about 3/4 of the way through it, but it's a lot of, you get stuck in points with it because it's so heavy on the documentation of just reading through, you'll get these instances or these reports from these high-ranking military officials or just eyewitnesses that, you'll have pages and pages and pages of just build-up. And so it is a little tough to read to get through those parts, but I'd say out of, a 20-page story, you've got 3 solid pages of getting to what you really want to read about. Like the other stuff is just, giving you the person's background and giving you the person's this. Well, we get it. Give me a quick little 1-paragraph summary in the beginning of it, and let's get to the, let's get to it quick.
And it depends what you're trying to get. Like when I initially started reading the Disclosure Project, I was looking for information in between the lines. And so I think it's one thing if you're reading it looking for an answer of whether or not I believe in this stuff. And I was looking at it looking for specific keywords that people use when they might be describing things. And that's like, if you just want to pick anything, like let's say the energetic phenomenon that typically surrounds encounters or seeing craft or getting into like frequency and vibration. Like I was looking for keywords for that. So I'm meticulously reading through this stuff because that's the stuff that's going to stand out for me. Where I'm like, okay, I see a link between this and that. That's maybe overlooked and not even like talked about at any length and detail. So from that perspective, like the book is so technical, and I didn't want the movie to be that kind of movie. There's plenty of documentation movies out there. There are 5-hour mega movies you can watch on YouTube. Or crap, if you've got a weekend to spend, go spend 48 hours on YouTube just looking up the technical documentaries. But what you need is something that can be given to somebody who has very little knowledge about these subjects and serves as kind of like a primer for them to have a conversation now. It entails understanding government secrecy, government manipulation to cover up the political aspects of it, the energy aspect, the technological aspects, the military-industrial complex, the sociological. All of those things have to be discussed, and they could be so overwhelming if you try to talk.
They packed a lot into that movie. I mean, it was a I want to say a long movie, but it wasn't a short movie. Yeah, felt like 2 hours, and they did I feel like they did a great job of giving you all the really important top points. The really good information. And again, they didn't go and give you lots of technical stuff, lots of interviews, lots of we went here on this day, and on this time we saw this, and then this happened, and the readings we found said this. No, they even. I think that was really good. They gave you just enough of the good stuff, and they kind of hinted at, there's a lot more out there with these interviews with these other people that are available on the website if you want to read more into it. And that's when they show like the grid with all the different pictures of the people talking to the camera.
This to me is a post. It's like so many movies focus on, I'm going to convince you, buddy. Here, check this out. Ancient knowledge, here's this. Or look at this documentation. How can you dispute this? Skeptics, step up. It's totally a challenge to bring all this in. And I feel like this movie totally just walked around that and said, accept it. So here are the questions we're concerned with now. Don't care that you want to dispute something and tell me that it's swamp gas or that it's technically impossible according to so-and-so's model of theoretical physics or some shit.
Yeah.
Just move around. Get out of my way, please. Here's questions now we would like to discuss.
It's a whole new world of questions we need to talk about.
So I like that. Now. I think it helps. I feel after this will consciously and subconsciously affect other people who are doing the same type of stuff, doing research or doing documentaries or books, and they too will make that decision to just step around it, accept that this stuff is happening. Now, how did you explain this? Step around it and deal with these bigger issues and tackle the next, like go on to the next hurdle. So I thought that was really cool too. I think there's going to be a change just from this point, like in terms of how people approach these subjects, like especially new filmmakers or writers or researchers.
Yeah, I'm personally on the edge about the whole Greer thing in general. I'm kind of skeptical about the guy. I know a lot of people do have a problem with his cockiness, if you would. His I don't want to say cockiness, his arrogance, and saying, "Well, I did this, and I went there and did that, and I saw this person," and it does get to me a little bit. But again, I reserved a lot of judgment till after this movie, and I feel like it was put together really well, and it hit on a lot of all the points that I would have ever want to made about the subject. And it definitely lived up to what the book was trying to do, I think. And it was shot really well. And there's nearly no one part that dragged. Some of the CE5 stuff, some of the meditation kind of stuff, it's not really that interesting to me. But all the other stuff was great, in my opinion.
I would say for me, here's my issues with it first and foremost. First, I'll say it was a million times better than the presentation in Santa Monica that we went to initially, because the one in Santa Monica...
And that's the one that was actually in it occasionally.
Yeah, they had some clips kind of showing some things. It showed him speaking there, and they used a lot of that footage. The production value in Santa Monica was horrendous. It was just absolutely horrendous. It was just poorly put together. Whoever was running the slideshow behind Greer was just, I don't know if they're having technical difficulties or if they just never used a PowerPoint presentation in their life, but it was absolutely horrendous. It almost took you out of the presentation. So that was very, very tough to actually enjoy. But I would say production value 150% times better. I actually felt like I was watching a documentary. I felt like, I was being brought into this world that somebody was trying to show me. My issue was I felt that it was muddied in the presentation of how it was put together. Number one, the three issues that this disclosure project talks about is, the first is the consciousness expansion of the human mind. The second one is the cover-up of all of this technology that we have just not had access to over the past 60 years. And the third one is, do you believe in extraterrestrials? Do you believe, et cetera? Those are the three things that this disclosure project basically hits on. I did not care for the way that those three things were brought up in the film. I wouldn't have started it off with the consciousness in the beginning.
Yeah, I
would have
either.
finished with
I would have finished that with too. That's kind of a tough sell for people.
Exactly.
And just to lead off with that in the first 20 minutes is. I was thinking that too in the theater.
Yeah, exactly. Like I did not like that coming up in the beginning. If anything, you already got the skeptics out there. I mean, we're there because we're people that are interested in this topic. We're there because we seek out this information and we're curious about it and we want to know. If you want to hit a broader audience, if you want to hit people that are the ones that are on the fence or the ones that are the non-believers or the skeptics, you need to start off with the simplest, the most bare bones, elementary, kindergarten thing possible. And you start off with, do extraterrestrials exist? Then you start off with that, and you give your pieces and your parts of it, you ask your questions. Then you move on to the bigger question, which I think really hooks people in, is how are they getting here? Well, what would be the big turnaround if we actually had this technology? How would our civilization change? So now people are going, wow, okay, now their brains are really turning. Then you finish it off with the consciousness and with the meditative
contacting them, supposedly contacting
exactly,
them.
Because I think in the beginning, just in the order for me, I like as I'm watching it and enjoying it, I'm trying to also think from somebody's mindset who is not as, I guess you would say, versed or has researched as much as I have. I'm thinking, you know what? You're going to lose a lot of your audience in the first 20 minutes here. They're just going to go, really, dude? You bring all these people out into the desert and meditate? Yeah, what are you meditating on?
Yeah.
That's exactly
and
what
they're
they're
banging little gongs together and there's smoke around. And
unless you're into that, unless that is something that you practice regularly, unless that is your belief system, you are going to scoff and laugh at it and go, come on, really? Look at these hippies, or look at these free spirit minded, look at these tree huggers. That's exactly what you're going to get. So save that to the end. Save that to the end to pull that card out on people and hook them in earlier with the other stuff that they can kind of sink their claws into quicker. That with that being said, I feel it was very open-ended, like most things that I do research and watch. Like, we always watch these things, and at least I do. I look for some type of, did I get an answer out of this? When, if anything, it just raises more questions most of the time. You just get more questions that pop up of, man, that was a good point. That makes me think a little bit further about this, and it makes me go here with this. And I always wonder, it's almost like this terrible game I play on myself of, am I ever going to be able to get something out of it other than more questions? And is that a good or a bad thing? I don't know. I guess that still remained to be seen. But overall, it was an enjoyable experience. I was happy. There was a really, really good turnout. And, as far as what we saw tonight, I don't think it was anything that really blew us out of the water as far as what we weren't familiar with.
Yeah, us three are pretty familiar with all this stuff already. So
yeah,
I do think some of the shots, like with the body they found. Where did they find that body? Do you remember?
I want to say it was somewhere in Chile, wasn't it? Like Atacama Desert. No, we can probably pull it up.
Something.
Pull it up on your iPad.
But I thought that was pretty cool. Like seeing that on a bigger screen with some of those specific shots. What's up?
I think I hear somebody talking somewhere.
Oh, honest, you know what it is? It's probably my phone because it constantly does this. Right, I hit a button. Yeah, it's playing. It's
Joe
playing.
podcast?
It's playing Joe Rogan podcast.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
I hit a
awesome.
button. Anyway, all right. When you're seeing some of these pictures in high res up there on the screen, it does have a different kind of quality to it, and with all that resolution, and you're looking at the stuff with the bone. That was really cool. It was a little different than just seeing it in a trailer.
Seeing it on your computer.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of the presentation when you're packing it with other stuff. So you've got music going on, you've got that you've got different geneticists and all the little pieces, coming together and talking with these people and the little edits and the chops and the little bits of information there as they're doing all the testing. It becomes more real. Just as much as you could say a movie, that suspension of disbelief when you're watching a movie. This was this, I don't know metaphorically how to describe that, but it was just more real when you're seeing the testing that they're doing, and they documented that well. And so then it takes on a different quality to it.
Yeah.
So that got me, like in a weird way. I didn't know how to explain that. It was just something I was feeling as I was watching it.
You kind of felt better about it.
It just felt more like one of those moments in time that you're aware of it being an important moment.
Yeah, like are we onto something here?
Yeah, like if that turns out to be what I think it could be, then it's. I remember that I was there. It's just like I just felt something there, and it's hard to put it in words right now. But it was definitely like a more. It just stood out for me, like seeing that and like being able to like it looks different when you're looking at it on a giant.
Yeah, they give you a lot more
25-foot screen,
a lot more detail too. Than any of the trailers or any of the press I've seen so far. But I was holding off a lot of judgment again about that, because that's something so unbelievable. And to lead your film with the we have a little alien body, that's a pretty big bold statement, and you really better back it up. And I was happy that they had the geneticist from Stanford on there.
Yeah.
And it sounded cool to me. He was saying a lot of big words, but
he was very articulate.
He was very articulate, very well spoken. He wanted to, he didn't assume you were stupid. He went into detail. He threw out some pretty big words there. And I was able to get enough of what he was saying.
And his reasoning was really good. When he made the comment of even the issue of we're running it through a program that was written by humans to decode DNA, but this is what we're great at, is placing things into little boxes. So we're basically saying if it's not human DNA, it gets into this we don't know what it is box. And so even when you do these kind of tests, there's you have to factor in these things that we're looking at it from. We're still looking at. If you're basically trying to, you're saying I want to compare the genetic material of this versus that, but because I am that, I need to compare everything through this straw. Because I don't know how to really look at these things outside of being that which I am. So you're so constricted in any sense of testing, and even that's why I feel like his frustration where he wants to say other things.
Yeah.
But I just felt that made me feel good, because I get it that he knows that there's a lot of radical differences in what he's looking at here, but due to the nature of the system that he's operating under, like a software system, you can't.
It's the system, meaning the academic system too.
The academic system and the software system, which are serving as, I guess, the assessment team, like the judgment of what this is, and you have to kind of go in accordance with that, because that's what the system is saying or demanding, in a sense. That's what everyone is basing their currency on, basing their perspective, thoughts, whatever results on. So you have to play by those rules.
Just for everybody out there, what we are referring to is there was a small alien being found in what is called the Atacama Desert in Chile. It is on the South American continent, and they have found these beings, one or two of these beings before, but this is the first one that they've ever had in their on their person, to the point where they can actually do DNA testing on it. They have found other ones. There have been stories of these beings living with some of the residents in the mountains for, extended periods of time, folklore, legend, etc. But the Atacama Desert on the South American continent in the country of Chile.
Okay. And to be clear, too, it's not necessarily an alien. We don't really know what it is yet.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's what they're doing, the DNA
They're promoting
testing.
it as an alien body.
Even if it was just whatever, it was some kind of rare disease or something, it would be worth talking about.
Absolutely.
And to have, and this is interesting, check this out. What could this be? So whenever there's
even if it was just a genetic mutation, it gives us insight to all this other stuff we've seen, all the elongated skulls we've seen in different parts of the world that may not even be from head binding. So we don't know.
So it's just why the silence on it. Why is it that it can't be talked about? That nobody's going to talk about that. Media companies, which they're not independent. When you say you're trying to go to the media with something, you're going to the media. The media is like a very large entity. So it's not that you went to 400 different random people and all of these people don't care. No, you've gone to a few people who own everything, who don't want this being talked about, and that's why this isn't out there. So it's like, why the secrecy? Why wouldn't you just plaster this around? This is interesting, cool, talk about it.
Yeah, I'm glad they did touch on that too in the movie, as they did touch on the fact that, you know, the 5 or 6 big media companies are owned by a very select few. So he did kind of touch on the big conspiracy angle a little bit, but not too much.
That was one thing that I wished he would have gone into a little bit more personally. I felt that he hung on a couple of other things a little bit too long, and then when he started to go into when he was flashing images basically on the screen showing like the Bloomberg
the Bilderberg
group and things like that, like he literally just kind of went over them real quick. He didn't go into the fact that, and again, this is where I feel like you need to hook the skeptics in. You need to hook people, and you know where you're going to hook skeptics? You're going to hook them by hitting them in their pockets, because those are the people that are like what we always talk about. They don't want to hear about this. They don't want to hear about that. They got a mortgage to pay. They got kids to put through college. They got a car payment. They got this and that. But when you start to affect their pocketbooks, because those are the things that they do understand, finances, they're like, well, man, my finances, it would be different. It would be so different. You need to try to relate on that level. You need to try to relate on that level so that people will understand that and go, oh, so now if this piece affects this piece, then this piece goes to here. Now this all kind of makes sense to me, instead of just lightly breezing over the top of it and going, there's some powerful families, and, you know, they do some stuff like this, and you know, these 5 corporations are pretty much running, you know, this whole financial infrastructure. But, you know, let's get back to this whole thing about where we're in the, you know, desert and this green being was in the background.
Well, don't you think it serves?
It's a tough subject to get into, because you tend to get into the crazy conspiracy theory mindset when you do that.
We're already at that point, though, with the subject that we're talking about. I mean, we're there.
It's a different,
but it's so it's difficult. You don't know where to end it. I mean,
that's the thing.
I'm sure you could say
it's a pacing issue in the project. It's a pacing. They'd have to pace it, and they'd have to give each block like 20 minutes. You know,
it's really tough.
2 hours,
and
120 minutes.
I can't imagine cutting that. Like, really,
totally.
I'd have to watch it again, but considering the amount of things they touch on and the vital importance, I would say, of each one, because each one is its own 10-hour, each 10 minutes of the movie could easily be its own 10-hour lecture on how that works and why all these things happen this way. So even touching a little bit on the Fed, the oil companies, and you know, that it's a petrodollar. Basically, it's we have a petro economy that's based on oil and gas.
Based on oil,
So lightly touching on these things, summing that all up into like the military-industrial complex, and like integrate. It's such a complicated thing. I can imagine this would just be a beast to edit, because it comes down to you still need to stick to this 2-hour. You're trying to make a 2-hour movie that is more commercial, so it can't be a 4-hour movie. Even some of these zeitgeist movies are like 3-4 hours, and I highly encourage people who are very new to this stuff to always watch these things. Just watch them, because there's little bits and pieces in there that are going to make sense later, and they're applicable to future information that you're going to get. And I feel this, to me, was wonderful in that sense of, you could watch that, or like, we all know this stuff, so it's different when we're watching this, but you could say to a friend of yours who has very limited exposure to this stuff, check out Sirius. Check out the Sirius film. If you have questions, come talk to me about it. If there's anything that is interesting to you, on any moment.
Yeah,
of
I
that
could think
film.
of any other number of documentaries or shows, TV shows that they could go watch to expand on any one of those subjects.
You thought the Fed and the banking system stuff was interesting, and that you felt something there. Here's what you should watch.
Yeah, here's this little list of stuff to watch. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Amar D. Kaleka said that in an interview I was listening to with on Tim Bravo's show, Bravo New World. He was saying that he didn't want to touch on the conspiracy theory stuff too much in terms of the big what do you call it, New World Order conspiracy.
I'm so glad he did it very subtly.
Yeah,
it was very subtle
enough. It was,
but
enough.
It was in there.
Yeah.
For even 9/11 thing.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you. And like people were clapping in the theater. People were clapping in the theater, and I felt that too. It's like, thank you for bringing this up, because you can't be afraid to confront that issue. It is so serious, and it's like, and still like there's always like there's this air around it with people, because the people are still, I think, recovering from that. From the sense of like even being able to talk about like what they feel like really happened on that day, and so I love that they really put that in, because that's another critical element. All of these things are interconnected, and it's difficult, I think, to newcomers to understand how their pocketbook is affected by aliens, but it is, and it is in the most profound and most intimate, or not intimate, but direct manner, in a sense of their acquiescence to the system, and the fact that they're still getting up, they're driving, they're gassing up their cars, eating the food that like mostly like shitty fucking processed foods that are mass manufactured to everybody, and working slavery jobs and all this stuff, and not understanding these things, and like going into the distractions. And it's fine, like there's nothing wrong with enjoying.
He touched on that a little bit. That was good.
And it's so extreme. There's nothing wrong with enjoying life and enjoying the experience and doing these things, but there's a point where it becomes just like anything. Like the behavior is very addicting, and it's like you're not doing anything else other than punching in your 9 to 5 and doing you're working your slave job, and then basically being spoon-fed some bullshit entertainment that like really is never going to get you anywhere. It could be very addicting, and so I'm glad they touched on so many things.
And speaking on so many things, I was really quite impressed by all of the news clips that they pulled, right? All the media clips that they had from different broadcasts over the years, and all of the quotes and broadcasts from different presidents and different people. They really tied all that together with good pictures and imagery. They had, the name of who was talking and where they worked, what they did. And just as it kept going on, I'm like, wow, this is a lot of information to wrangle together. But here it is in a very digestible 2-hour, very well put together, high production value thing I can very easily consume. And you're getting a lot of the points that they're bringing up in the movie backed up, or at least the ideas are trying to give across, reinforced by John F. Kennedy's talking, or Woodrow Wilson, right? The one when he was talking about the
Eisenhower
military
industrial complex.
Yeah, about that speech. Like I thought that was really, really good, really well done.
Yeah, it is. It's because anytime you have iconic figures like that, because of course everybody thinks that this is just something that's been popularized in pop culture since like the Reagan administration, with the whole Star Wars program or whatnot. But when you go further back, when you go back to almost even FDR or Eisenhower, or hell, even Nixon or JFK, you've got people that they put stock in these older, iconic presidents that we've had in the past, whether they're famous or infamous. They will look at that and go, wow, this goes back pretty far. All this stuff goes back really, really far. So then the wheels start to turn with that as well, because it's just, it's a long time. I liked another part of the documentary I enjoyed was, when did that Reddit video come out of that meteor going over Russia? Wasn't that 2 or 3 weeks ago?
That was like a month. It was within the last 2 months.
I don't even think it was 2 months. I want to say a month tops.
It was a month.
I want to say a month tops. That thing was there.
4 or 5 weeks.
For anybody who's not familiar with this, there was a meteor that was caught crashing over some part of Russia, and this was a very popular video that was caught from multiple camera angles, multiple car cams, cell phone cameras in Russia, and it was uploaded to a very popular website called Reddit. And they actually had this in the documentary, so that just goes to show you how, I mean, whether they just threw this edit together, or this final cut here within the past maybe week, 2 weeks,
Yeah,
you know, they've got it in there. So
even the update from the DNA guy at Stanford it said it within the last month. So they literally were working on this up until the last minute to give you the most up to date information.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool. That's good that, you know, it wasn't just kind of shelved for a little bit, and they were still, so they were probably under the gun to try to make their release date when they said they were going to put this thing out. So that's a good thing. You know, they got it out, and they definitely did what they needed to do. Just to touch on what you said, Geoff, I agree that, you know, it would be tough to put all of that information in, especially about, like, you know, the stuff Matt said, like the New World Order, the, you know, the cabal type, you know, stuff. But I just wish it would have just been a little bit more time, not just the quick breeze we got. Like literally, it was like a quick breeze, a couple of diagrams, and boom, we just jumped back into this, that, and that. I just wish they would have spent at least 5 more minutes and cut off some of the rigorous, like, shots of, you know, this person pondering that we don't know about, and I'm sorry, and I don't mean to be rude, but do we need to see his bodyguard talking to us all the time? We already know that dude's on board. You know, let's talk to somebody else. Can I see the testimony from a retired military official, or a supposed retired military official, whatever. Like, do I need to see one of his bodyguards tell me? Like, I don't know. That to me didn't hold a lot of water for me. That guy, I just looked at and I was like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, you're agreeing with everything Greer's already saying.
Yeah, yep. I get it, dude. You're on board, you know.
From an objective point of view, in a sense of, I get that. Like, I imagine that as a filmmaker that they might have done that just to try to build character around Greer. And you know, stuff like. Go ahead.
Real quick, I just want to throw this out there. Did you guys ever see Bowling for Columbine?
I did, yeah.
The documentary?
I don't really remember it, though.
Okay, damn.
Go ahead.
There was this fantastic, the way that Michael Moore did this quick getting everybody caught up to speed on basically the birth of America, the birth of our nation, how we incorporated slavery, and he did it in a cartoon. We incorporated slavery, we didn't pay taxes because we broke away from Britain, and et cetera, et cetera. He essentially took about a 300 to 400 year block of time, and he broke it down to probably 7 minutes in like a cartoon form. And again, when you're trying to get the masses to understand something, you want to familiarize it with them, and you want to make it so simple to digest that even a 10-year-old could have understood if he was watching Bowling for Columbine, which was a heavy subject matter. But again, I feel like something along these lines of it being so encompassing on a global scale and an interstellar scale, that could have been incorporated here, like just a kind of like a timeline runner of, check this out, this is kind of where this came from, this is how this started, and this is where this went to. That's what I would have liked to have seen, something along those lines to get us kind of caught up. But it just felt like it was kind of out of order for me. And again, I go back to, I wouldn't have paced it or even pieced it together the way that it was with the meditation and the consciousness starting and then going this way and that way. But I just thought that using that as a reference, the Bowling for Columbine thing, the little cartoon opening sequence showing how things got to where they were, I'm using that as a point of, keep it simple, make it very digestible on numerous levels. You know.
Yeah, this is just a comment on the particular editing formatting that they chose for the movie, but instead of making it into, like you were saying, 3 chunks. The first chunk is learning about this. The second chunk is learning about this. Third chunk is about this in the alien body. No, what they did in the movie is they bounced around again and again and again and again, and they touched on each one of these different subjects, and they kept coming back to different things. Kept coming back to the meditation thing, the CE5 expeditions, and they kept coming back to the alien body, and they're continuing on that storyline. And they go back to something else, and they kept bouncing around a lot, as opposed to finishing up a giant chunk of narrative, then moving on to another chunk of narrative based on that, then moving on to another chunk of narrative.
Yeah, the flow was just, flow felt a little just kind of jumpy, you know?
Yeah.
I'm at odds with that because on a personal level, I like that they go into the meditation and the spirituality aspects of it as heavily as they do. Not heavily, but just, I agree with you. Like there's a lot of focus on it. But another part of me doesn't, I also feel that a lot of people aren't ready for that step.
No, they are not.
And just getting people to the step of just getting people to accept the reality of, you're not the only people in the universe, and that in a sense of there's not even like beyond physicality. I'm not even talking about ethic or spirituality or spiritual matter. I'm talking just like purely physical, on a physical level, not even considering dimensions or densities, that there's other life out there. Just getting them to accept that, and then to entertain the ideas of, well, how are they getting here? Think about technology and like what are the implications, like all the other stuff that we've talked about. Just getting them to that is a pretty big step. It's a lot of progress. Taking people to the meditation thing is another massive leap for them to take, another big step. And if you don't have personal experience with these things, if it just, what if you didn't have a lot of footage of blurry photographs of UFOs and videos and all this stuff, and it was just tons of other people just saying they'd seen something? If you never saw anything and there was no reference for you to look at online for what you've seen, it's just other people's firsthand, their accounts of it, it's much harder to believe. And if you've never had a spiritual experience, if you haven't had a near-death experience, if you haven't had something paranormal happen to you, if you don't sense subtle energy, you're not going to be purchasing or whatever, jumping on board that ship and
you're not going to relate.
Going for that. You're not going to relate to it. You're not going to relate to it. And so I'm just at odds there, because I personally, I'm like, yes, this is where it needs to go, because I believe that the consciousness aspect is way more powerful and way more important than even what I used to be all giddy about, which is, I want a hoverboard or my flying car. Like the technological aspects were dwarfed as soon as I started to personally study and come to my own understanding of my own relationship with like spirituality and understanding certain things that for me, just on a personal level. So it wasn't until that I was able to take that step in my own way that I was able to almost look, just not get so deep into the physical aspects of it and all the other stuff. So, but it's just, if you don't have, how do you relate to that? How do you, if you don't have that? And I think that is tough for people to make that connection.
People have already a hard enough time dealing with other people's religions different from their own. So again, like, you're kind of like what you guys are both saying, asking people to go along with that right off the bat in the beginning of the movie is a little challenging.
Exactly. I mean, think about feeding an infant, okay? Think about feeding a baby. What do? You play airplane with them. You have to coax them. You have to show them that it's good for them to eat this, right? So you basically are spoon feeding them the information. And when you're already dealing with a subject matter that is just very controversial, very out there, very, kooky, wacky, whatever you want to call it. It's been attacked for years and years and years. You have to spoon feed people it. You have to, and you have to be very careful on the way that it's presented to them, because if you'll just lose your audience in the first 15 minutes. For example, if that documentary Sirius was on and you had a room full of 50 skeptics watching it, I feel like you'd lose maybe 75% of your audience in the first 15 minutes. I really do.
Would they get zapped up?
I wanna. What's up? What'd you say?
But would they get zapped up?
They get dematerialized.
People are just getting like Star Trek phased out. All the skeptics, and then it's like suddenly it's like there's no more skeptics. It happens to like 2-3 dudes, and then everyone else is like, they're like, there's no one else to beam out. They're like, everyone else is a believer now.
Well, shit, yeah. The 15 people left over, they'd be like, fuck, I guess they were all real. I guess everything was serious. No, but yeah, going back to what I was saying, you have to think about who your audience is, and again, they hit their audience. They hit, the people that were there, the people that want to pursue, and they enjoy, digging further down the rabbit hole, or whatever cliche you want to use. But if you want to grow your audience, like, how studios are always saying, we don't care about the old fans, we want to create new ones.
Yeah.
Well,
good point.
That's exactly what, people want to do with any product. So if you're trying to introduce this to new people, you have to be careful on how it's introduced to them. So that's why I use kind of like the infant and the, playing the airplane game with them, because it just, you gotta spoon feed them, man. You gotta spoon feed them so that they're on board, because otherwise you're just gonna have a bunch of people that are talking shit about you in blog boards or saying that you're a kook or a quack or this or that.
You know what, though, too? Is just like when you first, like about a few years ago, and if you were to watch like a UFO documentary or show somebody something, right? You might get that skeptic or somebody who, all right, there might be something with this Roswell thing. I don't feel this whole movie, but there might be something with this Roswell thing. I think the same could be said about this, where somebody who is very new to this might watch this and feel what exactly, almost, just kind of transplant that. I don't know about this part, but that's kind of, so they might do that with this, and with the meditation thing, it might just be that doesn't resonate with them. They don't get it, but that maybe they walk away with it, away from it, and they're like, all right, I'm going to study this whole thing with the banking and the Federal Reserve, and so then it gets their interest going. Eventually, you're going to come full circle, and you're going to come back. If you, it doesn't matter where you start. If you start looking into UFOs, you're going to end up somewhere down the path. Yeah, you've read about this. You know about the Bilderberg groups, and you've read about secret societies. It's going to come full circle. If you start at secret societies, you're going to end up somewhere with UFOs, paranormal, and the metaphysical.
Well, that's the one thing that I really enjoyed about the way that Greer started to go with the conversation in Santa Monica was at one point in his presentation, he goes, and here's the $600 trillion question. As soon as you say that to people, you're now excluding all of those people that go, oh, this guy's a kook, he's a... Don't listen. What's he talking about? Flying saucers and ray guns? Come on, man. No, now when people hear money, because that's what people hear in our society, they go, well, what are you talking about? What's $600 trillion? A lot of money.
What about the oil business now?
Yeah, that buys a lot of cheeseburgers. What's going on over there? So as soon as you get that to get going, I enjoy when he starts to bring those points up, because now he's starting to hit
he's hitting on the everyman's problem right there. That's the core of it.
He's hitting everybody's resource-based, scarcity-based of this is the issue. It's a resource-based issue, and it's a secret. It's a hidden technology that people are going to wonder. Yeah, I mean, would people be freaked out? Would people be scared if they saw these things, these beings, these whatevers? Yeah, they were shitting their pants at first. Maybe some people would be prepared, some people would be freaking out, but then other people would eventually go, well, damn, where do they come from? What's it like there? And I wonder how they do things. And then once those questions start to come up, then the dam breaks.
Yeah, that's good.
Then the dam breaks, and then everybody's going, well, how'd they get here? They didn't stop at Arco, did they?
Yeah, I thought you had a crash disc. What happened with Roswell?
Yeah. So
you said you had it, and then the next day you came out and you said, oh, no, it was an air balloon or whatever.
So that generates, that to me, I think, is where you can really start to bring people in that are on that fence of, this stuff is hokey, man. I've seen the movies. I've heard about this, like the Arizona Lights in '97, and when they had that clip playing up there, perfect example. The mayor comes out and makes fun of it, and of course, everybody that's
with his buddy wearing an alien suit and handcuffs.
Yeah.
It's like, oh.
And of course, that's a perfect reinforcement of making people who are on the fence going, oh, see, even this guy, a publicly elected official doesn't even take this seriously. But
that's why the public got pissed when he did that.
Yeah,
he wasn't taking anything to 10,000 people who saw that seriously.
And then 10 years later, he completely, flip flops on his. He's like, look, it was definitely, extraterrestrial. It was definitely this. It was definitely that. Now
he's been replaced, Jason.
Yeah. And I don't get it. I don't understand. But that's where you hit people hard. You hit people hard when you start to affect and you go around not just the fact that, oh, they're little green men or they're little this. You start to bring full circle, like Geoff said. Maybe from the documentary they get out of it, oh, they check in on the banking system, and they check in on water powered cars and technologies that have been suppressed because nobody wants to share their money if they're making all of it.
Yep.
Geoff made a good analogy a while ago.
They want
about
to do everything they can to make sure that system survives.
Yeah, Geoff had a great analogy a while ago about like water and a trickle system and a faucet. The people at the top have control over the faucet, and they let a little bit out at times, and it's all backed up. It's all backed up somewhere. So
yeah, they have all that. And when he talks about even like the petrodollar, and it's like the $600 trillion question. Well, our economy is. We are at like the lower end of it, but it is dictated and controlled, or not controlled, but it is directly, like dynamically linked to our energy. our ability to produce energy. That's why it's like, as oil prices change, it affects the world economy. As all these things, like our entire economy could crash if like oil suddenly shuts off, because everything is trickling from that. So now this is, you're dealing with a scarce, heavily controlled and manipulated commodity, like resource that is dictating your. What happens when your economy is based on limitless energy or unlimited potential? Now you have massive abundance and massive wealth, because you're no longer constricting it to this insane system that is controlled by a bunch of sociopaths.
I'm curious to see what you guys thought about the free energy stuff they touched on in the movie. Did it for you, as you're saying, provide any answers?
Are you talking about when they had like a few of the experimental like people showing their small kind of mock-up devices?
Yeah, all the different videos and pictures and things.
Dude, yeah, of course, because
like primer.
I mean
that's like, I feel like that's such a hotly debated thing. As soon as you bring it up, anytime to any engineer, scientist, anywhere, they roll their eyes and go, "Oh, free energy, cold fusion." Oh, rolling my eyes. Well, they can't do that because
it's a program response. Though.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it though. I don't know enough about it because here's the thing: all of those experiments that those guys were running, they were using electricity to run them. So they were still using a power source. They were still sucking power from somewhere else. I didn't see.
But the idea there, Jason, is to get eventually get more out of it than you're putting in.
Right, exactly.
Which is what over unity means when they say that.
And I understand that. I do. I can grasp that concept. But I'm still okay. Let's say we get to over unity, where you're getting more out of what you're putting in. Well, you know what the electrical company will do then? The 1 gigawatt or whatever, kilowatt, whatever you're using. I know I'm using a Back to the Future term there. You know what they'll do? They'll charge you $1 million for that kilowatt. Then. That's what they'll do, because
that's what they did to that guy in the video. They showed how like he was doing some shit, and they did a bunch of stuff. They took him to court, and they fucking ruined this guy's life.
Yeah, and again, I don't know enough about it. I haven't done enough research on it, but again, it's very exciting to me to see those things because, dude, when you can start to solve the energy problems that people stress about constantly, then you start to open up so many more pathways for so many more positive things. There are so many more doors that open up for people. When we've hit on this on numerous shows that we've had. If you take away the bullshit stress out of your life, you know how much extra time you have to just do good things? A hell of a lot of time. You know, if you're not worried about, you know, keeping a roof over your head and keeping your food hot and keeping the water running and keeping your devices ran, you can then go out and do so much more. Of course, some people will think, "Oh, well, you're just going to promote people being lazy and people being drug addicts."
And there will people who will do that. There definitely will be people who will do that, but that's not everybody.
Yeah. I was excited about the free energy device stuff on there. I was very excited. That's just me, and I don't know a lot about it.
Yeah, going back to it takes some energy to get some energy. Another way to look at it is immediately my mind goes, "Oh, you're saying, it takes a motor to get that thing spinning up, right?" Well, what if they build this machine and they find out it works? All you got to do is get it spinning up, and then it'll start generating more out of it than you put into it. Well, what's not to say they can't take that then and go, okay, now that we know the concept works, we're going to build a bike-powered version of that. So all you do is you sit on top of the bike, you pedal really fast for 30 seconds, and then away it goes. There you go. You don't need the electrical company anymore.
Well,
Just as an example.
Even if what you're talking about is still a one-time energy device. Imagine if I had an engine. I'm just talking about
if it ever even died at that point.
Well,
you know,
you wouldn't need
just
to
start it up once.
Imagine I have a battery, one battery, and this would be using advanced, even with the stuff they just pumped out. Like there was something a few days ago where they're like, "Oh, we think we can by a 1,000-fold increase." Lithium ion batteries.
Oh, the size.
With the
density.
But it's like using a new nano manufacturing process. Okay, so I got one of these things. Cool, give me one of these. Oh, I got to spin this engine once in the factory. They hook it up to a generator, it spins it, gets it going. Please charge this little battery. Now, every time this thing is spinning, it's going to keep this thing charged.
There you go.
And this is the energy that is now used for the other 2 billion times you're going to turn this thing on and off. And every time it turns on, it recharges this.
Yeah.
If it's an over unity device. So there's so many.
It's a rechargeable battery, and maybe you got to replace it once every 5 years or 10 years when they stop working.
I think just even if you look at genetic and biodiversity, right? It's not that everyone looks human, that they're like all these different life forms that all look human, right? There's so much diversity. I think the same applies to just about everything else in the universe. So there isn't just, there's a handful of ways for you to generate energy. No, there's probably millions of ways for you to intelligently generate, or rather steer energy. You're steering. You're just changing things around, maneuvering. Hey, can you just like changing the course of a
changing it from one form to another?
Yeah, you're just finding water and finding creative ways to make the water go where you need it to go, so you can take advantage of it. That's all you're doing. It's only when you limit something, in limitation, just like in a movie, when you have limitations, you're making a movie. The limitation sometimes gives rise to the form. And when I was watching the shuttle launch in that video, I'm thinking of the same thing. You're limiting things to chemical rockets. Boom. What are you going to get out of that? Go. Evolution. Evolve. Things are going to happen. Technology evolving here. What's going to happen if I constrict you to, chemical propellant and these types of technologies over 100-year time span? Go. And then you're going to end up with these little rockets, little Chinese fireworks. Oh, suddenly, fine. We're going to take a giant one, strap a ship to it, send it up into space. The limitation gives rise to that form that you might never have had. So if we had just from the 1920s, if we had just developed, or even in like 1910, with somewhere around,
or
that,
if at some point it never went black, budget
exactly.
projects.
What if it just was straight up 1920s and 30s? We're playing around with gravity. By 1940, we got anti-gravitic devices. You would never have the space shuttle. I'm totally not saying that. I'm glad all this stuff happened just so we have the space shuttle. But it just from a perspective of creativity and just the limitation rise to form, it's interesting to see how that evolves and gives rise to something like the space shuttle. So, and you might not conceive of that if you were objectively outside of this universe and viewing it and looking into it and not sure where these people are going to go with things, and you haven't seen this maybe somewhere else. You might just think, okay, they're doing this. The Chinese are making fireworks. Where's this going to go? You might not know. You might not be able to see that in a couple 100 years they're going to be making giant ones and strapping a few guys into a tiny little thing, and then and it might sound
From
ridiculous.
Firecrackers to space shuttles.
It might sound ridiculous. So you can just imagine the texture and the variety that is out there in the universe. When you think of all the things we've come up with creatively, it's just bizarre. And if you could go out and if you could see right now another planet and another entirely different just spectrum of ideas and social cultures, it would just be baffling. It would be just like where it's overwhelming for an infant when it's first in the world and it's just too much stimuli. It might be the same thing. It might be just baffling for your brain, to try to decode everything that's going on. I feel that's why dreams are so friggin' crazy sometimes, man.
Another thing to touch on that subject, Rogan was talking about on his show about how, or maybe it was one of his guests was talking about, he brought these people out of the jungle who really weren't into the modern technology at all. They were very much kept away from modern society, and he was worried that they would become fall in love with our society so much they would never want to go back to the jungle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not what happened at all. The only thing that they were super excited about was when they saw a bow and arrow. They saw a bow and arrow and they're like, that's fucking awesome. That's fucking awesome. I can't wait to tell everybody about the bow and arrow. They didn't give a shit about the iPhone.
Yeah.
They didn't care about the cars.
Yeah.
They were excited about the new bow and arrow technology, about putting fletching the feathers on the arrows. That was the big
relatable.
thing.
That's what I was going to say.
big thing.
Exactly, because to them, they don't see how an iPhone or a car can help them in their current state. So, for example, that would be like showing a caveman a bow and arrow when all he's got is rocks to throw. Because if you've never shown him a primitive design of a bow and arrow, he'd probably wonder, what is this amazing thing? I don't know what this is. I throw these rocks, I have a stick, I just hit people with it. But as people make strides, it would be like showing somebody in the 25th century the iPhone and going, yeah, we've had that for 400 years now. It's old to us now. We know where that's at. But if you're close to seeing the potential of something, you can get even more excited about it. Whereas if you don't have any concept of what it can do, to you, it's just something. Like they'd probably use it as like a, who knows, like maybe a paperweight to hold down leathers while they're drying in the sun or something. Like, oh, there's the iPad. I've got it on some nice pelts that I just killed.
Maybe that's why being a kid is so much fun. Like the dynamic relationship of being able to conceive potential and possibility, but it being still far away, but it's like you got to reach for it. So as a kid, you're constantly confronted with unique sets of challenges and circumstances that allow you to. You're constantly reformulating your perceptions of reality and what's important to you. Where it's like, and that. In this grade, I don't care about any of those things that were just so important. I've grown so much from second to third grade.
All I want are chicks
now I'm into chicks or whatever it is, right? Like you change so quickly, and it's almost like you're so excited to be in fourth grade. You're not thinking about driving vehicles. You're not thinking about any of this, riding a bike yet. Or doing it. You're thinking about being in fourth grade. And then in fourth grade, you're thinking about being in fifth grade. It's like you're limited to where can you think and how far out. And it's so fast. It changes so fast. And I think as you get older, me personally, I still feel that like yearly, where am I going to be in a year or two? But I think it's definitely not as strong, as vibrant as it was when I was a kid, and you could do that kind of stuff, and it was just like I remember when I think I was like 13, probably around when I was 13 when I first started thinking about driving, but I didn't think about it. It was just like suddenly switched one day. I might have seen somebody in a car, and I just remember thinking, my God, that's going to be me one day. I'm going to be in a car driving a vehicle. I'm going to be able to. But prior to that moment, I had never cared, never thought about it. Wasn't sitting in the back seat going, one day I'm going to be driving this. Didn't come to mind.
It's a thought process that starts to affect you once you start seeing the benefits to your own well-being at that point. So, like for example, if these tribesmen had an issue communicating with their elders or maybe their siblings or their spouses or even other tribes, if you show them how to work an iPhone, a communication device,
even a walkie-talkie,
maybe that exactly.
They could take a walkie-talkie to
a can with a string on it. You could show them. Then maybe their excitement would go up because then they could see how it is adaptable to their lifestyle. Then they can say, "Oh, now this makes sense to me." Instead of it just being like, "Well, what does this do?" Okay, okay.
Yeah.
The one thing that really gets me, and this is kind of going back to the Sirius thing, is this is something that has interested me. Again, I've been a huge fan of ancient civilizations. The questions about the rise and fall of where did we start? What were the origins? What were the beginnings? Was there one civilization? Was there numerous civilizations that inhabited this planet? And I'm going to ask both of you guys this to see what you think about it. But again, why is it that there just seems to be, thus far, this grand kind of design in the physiological makeup of what we find? Why does this little alien being, or excuse me, this supposed alien being we see in the
jungle,
oh my God,
desert, Attaboy.
Yes,
Attaboy.
In
Look
that desert on Earth, on planet Earth,
Atacama Desert in Chile. Okay, why is it that it has the same essential physiological makeup that we do? 5 fingers, 5 toes, 2 legs, 2 arms. Now, I know you guys are going to probably reference this source code thing. You guys are going to reference this Wilcox thing about like there's some energy grand design that's like outputting. But why is it? Like, why is it that there is always this, because I was always a huge fan of Star Wars, and I love the diversity of the aliens in Star Wars because you had these slug huts, you had these crazy looking things that looked a certain way. Don't you think that if life is as abundant as it is, as it probably is, that it always wouldn't look humanoid? That it would look so strange, that it would look so off, and just, why is it that everything has 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, a head? You know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't we find something that might have more of like a arachnid style body, more of an insectoid type body? Like, what?
Depends on the environment.
Like,
this environment,
I don't know.
Before you jump into something, I just immediately had a thought, and I think of a computer. When you build a computer operating system, and you build a computer, you have a certain structure that we found to be a basis to go off of, right? You have one brain. You can't have 2 brains. You can't have 2.
Can you?
You can't have 2.
You can have 2 brains.
Could you have 2 though?
Like, no, you do have 2 brains. I'm telling you, you guys have 2 brains.
Could you? Yeah. Again, could you?
I do think with another one sometimes.
I'm trying to think.
No, I'm serious. All right, you have. I'm serious. I'm serious. You have a brain in your heart. Most people don't. Some people don't know that. You have a small brain in your heart. It's the first brain that's actually. Anyway, sorry. It's real shit. You can look it up.
It's on the internet. It's
on I read it on the internet. Dude, I
Dude,
read it on the internet. It's got to be true.
But I'm serious though. Like that has always been something that has really, really interested me. Is that is there a grand design? Like, is there some archetype, some model, some default design that is that has been tested, tried and true over and over, that no matter what it is, it's like, you know what, for this species to survive, they need to have these things. They need to have 2 legs. They need to have 2 arms. They need to have these things. Like, is that the way it is? Like, you know, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I just always have thought that, like, is this physiological makeup the same makeup that would potentially be across the galaxy with numerous, let's say, facial structure deformations or additions? Like maybe there's bone protruding in different areas. I don't know. Like that to me is very interesting.
Geoff's chomping at the bit. Let him go.
Let me get a metaphor going here. The same way, just think of planet Earth right now. In that, for the most part, human beings, there's a variety of different types of humans on this planet, different races, or ethnicities, but we all kind of look similar, and there's a lot of similarity to our. And if you even just look at like the insect world, there's a lot of similarity. Almost like when you get into like a genus or a class, there's a lot of similarity, and the similarity is designed around the function and the evolution of that species, and they almost fit into a certain ecosystem, right? That allows those conditions to thrive. Now, consider, like, just think of that now on a bigger scale, on like a galactic scale or even a universal scale. The same applies, where certain types of being, like design, are more successful, and they fit into a niche, and that niche is also is dependent upon other like external factors such as technology. So we're saying that we're a technological species. We use technology, and there are other species. These are my beliefs, and I've read many other aspects, like going into the metaphysical and the spiritual, and more of the outside, even the realms of the UFO stuff, like stuff I've researched. And but there are, if you get into the spiritual realms, we're just on a physical plane. In the spiritual plane, they don't need technology. So we use this. Why do I have a cell phone? Because I cannot communicate with you via mind to mind.
Use it as a way of transcending your physical limitations.
Exactly. Right now, I have limitation in my form. I am not able to read your mind and send you a telepathic message, Matt. So I need to use my iPhone. I need technology.
Even as simple as a pen and paper, you need to use that technology to communicate.
It's technology.
You need to use language to communicate with me.
I don't need technology if I'm spiritual matter. If I can teleport, if I'm capable of sending you a message via mind, if I'm able to, where are you at, Jason? Boom, and I don't care if you're on another planet. We're spiritual matter. I can teleport and just be there. I can think it, be there. If I can transcend space, I don't need a ship. I don't need. So in that respect, if you could almost be looking at people using ships as being a little ancient. Oh, you're still getting around in the galaxy in a UFO? That's nice. You're still using nice little holographic interfaces you have. Good luck with it. I mean, you could almost look, not that you're looking down, but it's a step up to not need technology. It's ultimate freedom. I don't even need technology. I don't need anything. So in that sense, I think your form, the way you might choose to intelligently express yourself, could be much more varied. But we are, especially if we're now on a physical plane, we are still constricted to the certain limitation in form. And what is the most successful limitation in form that allows us to develop technology? So an arachnid type body might lack the ability to manipulate tools. And now you got to take into account that from a macro perspective, the human being is a car. The spiritual essence is the person getting into a vehicle. So now you're saying, well, what is the successful evolution of this car? Well, the car needs to drive on a road. The human being needs to exist on a physical plane on a planet or a humanoid form. So it has to be able to work in this environment. So how can it more successfully do that? Where you would say, well, this Jeep Wrangler is very successful. They're very successful. It's able to go, this Prius is just not really cutting it in some of these. So you might, in a sense of just using that metaphorically, you'd say, well, there's a lot more of these off-road rugged terrain vehicles because the Prius can't make it all over the planet. It can only work on these flat surfaces. So it might not be a very successful model car across the entire planet. So same thing with like the human form as being just a vehicle for spiritual matter to experience limitation in form. Well, it might be that our physical bodies with the 2 legs and 2 arms is just more adaptable. It's very successful in its patterning across the universe in a sense of its ability to assimilate and work in various environments and survive.
I think that the word you brought up the best is tools, is to make and use tools.
Yeah, 'cause you still have to evolve. You're evolving that car, the vehicle, the body.
Yeah, what other animals can, I'm just thinking, I'm not really thinking too far into it, what other animals can make and use tools?
Simple tools? Well, the chimpanzees use very simple tools. Very simple tools.
But they're getting closer to us. I'm thinking of completely, not chimp with thumbs. And
they just really don't. I mean, you can have really highly intelligent beings on this planet, like dolphins and whales and other creatures.
Birds.
Even bees, ants are
birds.
There's
Bees,
all sorts of other levels of intelligence. They're just not using technology like we are.
Yeah. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just our bodies develop this way because we're especially able to use technology, being something
more
simple.
Easily.
Yeah, more
just
easily.
More easily. And it doesn't mean that there's not and what I liked about Avatar is he made it so that there's a lot of like 3-legged animals. Just like for the most part, okay, human beings, 2 arms, 2 legs. And even according to a lot of the things that I believe and I've read and I choose to believe that the humanoid form is a very, the most dominant, I guess, theme expressed throughout this galaxy in particular. But if you just look at the animal kingdom, it's most of a lot of them, they have 4 legs. You get into the insect world, it's very different. It almost went in a much more creative process, right?
Mammals have
all the so it's
2 legs, 2 arms. Mammals,
and it's just, I would say it's modeled after that. It's successful. It's allowed them to thrive to a certain degree. Like
I don't know. I still think there's more to it, man. I really do. It's just to
it's
me,
possible.
it's I don't know. It's just a really interesting question to really kind of think about, because I don't think it's as simple as just saying that it's, well, this is the best design for tools. I think that it's deeper, but I can't even put you make great points about it, Geoff, especially about like the spiritual side of it, like transcending your physical body and being a spiritual being. But that almost kind of brings in the chicken and the egg argument. Like, well, did you start off spiritually and did you regress into a physical form, or did you start physical and then did you progress to the spiritual form? For me, again, like the question I'm trying to bring up is there some type of grand design that is out there that is essentially stating that whenever this energy, this life force comes into being, that however that process ramps up, do we all start at this point, that like given that species the best opportunity to evolve and strive and succeed and fall on its face and get back up and dust itself off and continue to keep climbing? Is it this design, what we have? Like, is it something like this, like what we have? Or is it something that looks like a praying mantis somewhere? Is it something that looks like a shark somewhere? Like, I mean,
that's a really good point.
Depends on the environment.
But you bring up, when you say, think, I don't think this is necessarily, it's not a good or bad thing, but when you anthropomorphize something, if we were humans and we were trying to make contact with another set of humans who might not know they're human, right? Let's just say, for the most part, like in some tribe. If I said to you, Jason, A or B, we're gonna go.
I know about A or B's.
This is the clean one, though. This is, we're not even gonna get into it. But we can either walk over there, me and you, like this, or we can go put on these Halloween costumes that make us look like sea monsters and go talk.
Scare the shit out of them.
What do you think is going to be a better option? So I could say this, like, if I was part of a first contact team, if I was in charge of, if we were a spacefaring human race right now, and we came across another planet, and there's, for the sake of the art, there's some upright 2 legs, 2
humanoid. They look
humanoid. They're walking around. And I would think this is better. If we're going to try to make contact, we will try to talk to them. If, like, let's say me and you were good friends with these praying mantis aliens over here, and we hang out, we play poker, we play darts and pool, and have track and field games. But for the most part, we're all cool. But these people don't know you, and they're going to be a little freaked out by your praying mantis look. So maybe we'll talk to them first. We'll eventually befriend them. I'll bring some pictures and show them how cool and nice you are, and you're not going to eat them. And then you can meet them too.
Yeah.
So from a first contact just point of view, I would think it would be just bad. It would not be very tactful to allow a bunch of species who look too different
drastically or
from
radically
us to
different,
even approach us, to even come to this planet and do things. If you want to observe, you can do that, but in a sense of interacting and doing, like, I would be really weary of that until people are comfortable. And even me myself, if I could tomorrow go have meetings with off-worlders or whatever you want to call them. I could go, if they were humanoid, I could very easily just have a nice conversation with them. If the less human they were, the harder it would be for me, I think, to have that conversation.
Yeah, and this goes back to what we had talked about previously about the three characteristics of the human species and the human race that always divides us: characteristics, geography, and language. So as soon as you pull those three things away from us real far and get really, really far, okay, hey, this person doesn't look like me, they're from a crazy place, and they don't even speak like me, I am really like, whoa, your defenses kind of shoot up. But as soon as you can kind of get close to those three things, we're more accepting of it. We're like, oh, you know what? Okay, we're more accepting. So it's, I don't know, somebody told me once that there was a... There was an episode, I think, on Star Trek that talked about the reason that we are the design that we are. You know, with the 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, nose, mouth, whatever, 5 fingers, 5 toes. And it was that there was some ancient race that basically seeded the universe. And over time, you know, and they're given areas of the universe that they evolved in their own way, that they evolved in their environment, and they evolved in this and that. And honestly, that made more sense to me than anything I've ever kind of like researched on my own, you know, is because I could believe that, and I will say this wholeheartedly, I could believe that there would be some super advanced type 0 prequel civilization that went through and just kind of seeded the galaxy. And then, you know, I think one thing that makes us extremely, extremely unique is our ability to mutate and evolve and adapt. I think that if you put us on a low gravity, low level planet with certain types of radiations and low atmosphere and UV this and UVB that wasn't coming in, our bodies, we're amazing enough to adapt. And we would essentially, we would adapt to any environment, be it not too harsh, but we would adapt. We would still be human, but over time we would adapt and we would develop mutations in our bodies that would help us adapt. So I think that whoever, whatever, whether you believe in creationism or evolution, this vessel that we have is an amazing machine that can adapt. I really do think that.
What it's all about.
I really do think that. In some of the stuff I've read, some of the hypnotic regression where you're talking with the subconscious and stuff, or the superconscious, that's exactly what a few of them have said when they've broken it down to the human body template, is that if you think of it as a shell, if you were to take your genetics and seed it onto another low gravity world, you might come back in 20,000 years and they look very different from you. They're humanoid, but they might just have they're very adaptable. Like the I guess like the core programming of the genetic code of the human form is very, very adaptable.
Yeah,
over time.
You can see that,
and it can survive and it can adapt. Whereas other forms just can't hack it. Like they're not able to be they're nowhere near, or not, I don't want to say nowhere near.
For some reason,
they're just not as adaptable as and successful as the human form has been.
Yeah, at some point, you know, having 8 legs and, you know, giant fly eyes just didn't work in a lot of variety of environments. It only fit into very specific conditions that
maybe
were perfect.
For that size. Because think about the insect world too, which I think is interesting. Is when we talk about the mammal world, right, we're so far off base of Sirius. This conversation got way too serious.
That's what we do when we play in the sandbox.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. That's how it goes.
But if you think about the thing with the mammals, which I thought was cool, is there's great diversity, right? But still it's all the mostly the four legs, right? But you get into the insect world, it's so crazy. The insect world is so diverse. It is just it just blows me away when I try to even wrap my. It's like it's no different from looking up, and it's right there in front of your face. But it's just like when you look up at the stars and you think about how many stars there are, and you start to think about these things. There's sometimes this little moment where it's like you get a taste of, it's like almost like a peek behind a curtain. It's just like overwhelming thought. And then it just shuts off right away. It's the same way for me when I think about the insect kingdom and just how many, and just the variety of the species. And there's so much there that it doesn't, I feel like it doesn't matter where I start, when I start, if I ever start. It's just like this massive mystery waiting to be explored.
Look at us, though. Look at a human versus a hyena versus a dolphin. Look at those three things. All three of those are mammals, but they live in extremely different environments. They have extremely different eating habits. I mean, one spends its time in an ocean. It doesn't have 2 arms, 2 legs. And I mean, all three of them are mammals. So maybe with the insect thing, I mean, is it proven like there are not that many species of mammals on the planet compared to insects? I don't know enough about that to say.
True. This isn't a subject I know a lot about.
But if it's a size thing, if you imagine you were...
Seems like there's a lot of bugs, though.
If you were a 6 mile tall being that walked around and you just like jumped off your spaceship and fell on this planet.
6 miles tall.
Yeah, you got to be 6 miles tall. It'd be a pretty big boom. But then you just start walking around, you're like picking up like dogs and like looking at them in your giant like Empire State Building size microscope, and you're like looking at them and people. I guess it would almost be like if you see what I'm trying to do, right? I'm trying to make people and mammals insects. That's why you got to be 6 miles tall.
Okay.
So that we could see the diversity from their perspective. But
all right.
That's true, though. Maybe there would be. There is. I'm not trying to discredit the mammals here.
And I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just wondering. I mean, do we like? It does seem like there's a hell of a lot of insect classes compared to the mammalian classes. Like, aren't there only? I don't know. Again, I don't know enough about
subject.
So
I'm not an expert at all on this.
It just
stuff.
seems like there's.
I'm an expert.
It just seems
I've
like
read
whenever they go to like
Google.
Yeah, it just seems like
learned
whenever
it on the internet.
Yeah. Internet, dude. Whenever you read a clip about they just went to the rainforest and they found 56 new species of spiders, and you never hear about that about a new species of mammal. It's always like, oh my God, there's 26 new types of
monkeys,
beetles, and you're just going, wow, really 26? Okay, so who knows?
Getting back to Sirius, actually, is a thing I thought about earlier. I really kind of liked that they went into Greer's story.
Yeah.
They told you about him and where he's from and how the hell medical doctor got into this. Because that's what a lot of people complain about right off the bat. It's like, what? Dr. Greer? He's an ER doctor. What the hell is he doing with talking about aliens?
But then who should it be?
Yeah, exactly. And I think they do the same thing with Giorgio Tsoukalos from Ancient Aliens. They say, oh, he's a sports medicine guy. What the fuck does he know about aliens? Well, again...
I never knew that. That guy used to be a sports
medicine. That's what he's into. Yeah, okay, that's what his profession is.
I had no idea.
But yet he goes on that show and he talks about all the million things he knows about.
Huh, cool.
So it was really cool that they went into that with Greer. They kind of stated where he came from, how he got into this. The fact that he had that near-death experience as a child that connected him to the consciousness. The one consciousness of the universe. And but over the course of the movie, they kept going back to his story. How he became the center of, I don't want to say the center of the movie, how he became the champion of this.
The subline of the story is his story. Is his journey.
And it's not just an ego boost to him because he's always doing that whenever he goes on everything, but it is an interesting story to see how an average guy like him will get into such a fantastic position.
What you said earlier is key when, I think it was, you said something about like the thing with he's always talking about certain things. You gotta respect that. It's not his reputation. I don't think he gives a shit about his reputation. But everything he says is critically subjected to judgment, and so he has to be perfect all the time, like the way he speaks. Because if he the way I talk, where I sit here and I stumble trying to figure out what I want to say, and like, hey, let me try to amass my thoughts into some kind of recognizable format for you. I would never make it.
Yeah, Jason says that all the time. He's like your presentation has got to be perfect.
It's got to be perfect.
Dude, you do. I'm sorry.
If you're going to talk this mad, if you're going to talk this mad shit,
you've got to be perfect.
When you're in the crosshairs, you can't waver. You can't
stumble.
You can't. You just cannot, because you have everybody looking at you under a microscope.
Yeah.
Because that's the first thing they're going to discredit. Your unprofessionalism. You're not put together well. Like those are the things people are going to attack about you. So you have to. You almost have to be 10 times better than the other guy that knows the bare basics or the minimum of whatever it is. You have to be on your shit, because everybody else has got their sights on you going, oh, you fucked up here. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, you screwed up there.
Yeah.
Oh,
they acknowledged that in the movie too, about him saying he had dinner with the CIA director, and recently he went on Rogan and said that, and then somebody posted something from the CIA director who said that no, I never did that actually. Yeah, we never had that conversation, and I like that they addressed that in the movie.
Yeah. Yep.
To go back to that thing, to his near-death experiences that he speaks or touches upon on the Sirius documentary. I remember him actually talking about this at the Santa Monica get-together.
Yeah.
And you guys correct me if I'm wrong or if you've heard any of this, but I've never heard of a near-death experience where you go into the cosmos and you see an ET ship, because that's what he explains in his lecture. He said that when
I've heard that from lots of people.
I've never heard it. I've always
Everyone
heard
has very different, very varying experiences from
people
near-death.
a lot of people meet with beings.
Yes,
like in a lot of times.
I've heard of the light being things. I've heard of the white door, the light this, the white that, the tether line. I've heard of a lot of that, but I've never ever heard. And I mean, I've done a decent amount of looking into these types of things as well. I've never ever heard of an extraterrestrial ship. And this dude, not this dude, Dr. Greer, he said that when he had this experience, he literally felt himself lifting up into the cosmos, and then he saw a ship. And I'm going, okay, this is like the first time I've ever heard this. So, I mean, you guys are telling me.
I've read a few times.
You guys are telling me that the people have said this like numerous times. Like
I've even heard stories of people seeing cities. And like I see a city off in the distance or something, like a crystal city or something, and then a being suddenly, oh, there's a being there next to me, and they're communicating with me.
Okay.
It's also a matter of if where you're at, like somebody who has no familiarity with these things would say, oh, there were some beings, whereas somebody, and so it just becomes a story about there were. To other people, maybe, oh, there were some family people, maybe an angel there, some beings, and it's just somebody who is into a certain vein. They might a different train of thought might say these were some. All of a sudden, I was in the presence of some extraterrestrials. So their perceptions define their story, and here's a guy who's well aware about these things, and this is what he's saying because he's familiar with it. Whereas even when it maybe first happened. Let's say he had no interest in UFOs when that maybe initially happened. He might have just perceived it as being something, he might have just said it as a ship or some kind of space. But then in retrospect, knowing what he knows, he goes, oh, that was a ship. Oh, so now when he tells the story, it becomes, I saw the ship. I was on a ship. There was an ET, because he's aware of it consciously of what that was. You've talked about you having that one experience. It was a boat to you. A boat and a ship, but
I think it was a combination of a boat and a bus.
It's just your perceptions. Your perceptions.
That could easily be said as a ship. I had a dream and I was in a ship.
Exactly. So your perceptions. I bet in one of my dreams I was on a UFO with both of you guys, and a couple other people, and it was fun. I think I told you about.
Did I have a lightsaber?
No, I just remember you climbing into the back. There was like some rows of seats. And we were going somewhere, and you had grabbed a bunch of duffel bags. Out of we were in a locker room that reminded me something out of like the scene in Aliens, where they're like getting their gear. It was like it was very like packing up, getting technical gear, and you had a bunch of gear, dude. You had like 2 big duffel bags, and you stepped over me to get in the back, and then we shot out down this tunnel tube. We shot out. It was almost like a tip of a diamond opening up on the top of a building, jutting out of this like structure in the city, and we shot out over the city. This was very. Some of these dreams are more real than real life, and that's like even when I first some of these ones I've had the equivalency is that this is standard definition, and then sometimes when I'm dreaming I'm in 4K Ultra HD reality, which is way
4K.
more real than this.
Yeah.
But yeah, totally sidetracked again. What were we talking about?
We were talking about the Greer near-death thing.
Oh,
that Matt brought up.
Yeah.
And, or the fact that they were talking about his story too. They were
Yeah.
going into his story.
Yeah.
I was
And
kind
I
of
did like
I like how they started out the movie too with the dead man switch thing. They talked about the dead man switch, but I wish they would have explained it. They didn't explain it. I happen to know what that meant when they brought that up.
I don't even know what you're talking about right now.
At the very beginning, it's like him walking in a hallway, in a dark hallway, to the stage, the lecture hall where we went, and it was a voice. It was
Thomas
a voiceover of Thomas Jane talking about a dead man switch. Something they didn't explain what that was, but basically the concept was Greer has information that if he were to let it out, would severely damage the powers that be. Supposedly, right?
Greer
So if anything ever happens to him, anybody ever tries to kill him again, that stuff will automatically go out into the world. It will get seen anywhere.
I don't think
that's what that meant. Just I just wanted to explain that.
So like kind of like in films when people are like, I've got copies of this hidden, and if I get taken away, it's going to every.
That's exactly
major
what
news.
this is.
I don't think it's necessarily information that would reveal the extent of the UFO cover-up or
it's something damning.
It would be something damning to an individual.
Yeah,
like where an individual might suffer repercussions, or whether they would be more direct, or even just something that would be humiliating, or something more family based or something like that. It might be to certain individuals that wouldn't really necessarily. I don't think, because I think if things were like he had proof of something,
he would want to use that proof.
He would, it would use it to blow the lid off.
Degree,
This is going to be something personal. This is I know something you've done. I know information. I have photographs of you here, or this, or that, or a tape recording of this. That's I feel like a personal thing.
They just didn't explain that in the movie, and I was hoping they would come back to it at some point and say that.
I didn't even pick up.
Maybe
I only know that because I've followed him a career a little bit, so I kind of know.
Maybe
what
it's
that means.
just kind of like one of those reminders to people.
Yeah, good point.
It's just very subtle. It's in there, like you. It's the first thing that you're gonna see, and you're just gonna get swept up in the movie. You're likely gonna forget about it. But if you're one of these people, the people who matter, here's just a reminder, dude.
Yeah.
Before you watch this, don't fuck with me, because I still have this.
Yeah. I had some crazy thoughts when I was sitting in that theater, dude. Just thinking, with all the recent events, the crazy bombing crap going on. I'm just thinking, like, I hope nothing's going to happen here.
No, nothing would happen there, because it would draw too much attention to something that you don't want to draw attention to. That's the problem when you do things of this nature. You are trying to hide the elephant in the room.
Yeah, but you got to be careful though, man, with like religious zealots and freaks and
like
shit.
Contact, like that.
Yeah, there you go.
That guy in Contact.
You don't have Jake Busey come in and blow up our theater.
Right. You got to be careful, dude, because people take it just way too far. I mean, way too far.
But it was a really good crowd, I think, really respectful.
Yeah,
and I was really cool. We got to see David Wilcock there. We got to see Joe Rogan's little bald head up in the front of the theater.
We saw him run in right there at the end. That was cool.
Yeah, and then Greer was there, and
did we ever find out if that was Hancock or not?
Oh, Graham Hancock, I don't know.
Never really.
I feel like we should check his Twitter if he's got a Twitter feed or something.
Yeah, and then the one guy that you and I saw, Geoff, with the gray hair, who's done
in a
little.
He was one of the CE5.
Yeah,
guys.
CE5 guys. He was there too. It was a good turnout. It was a really good turnout.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt it was good, and it was good. It just felt like there was a good energy. There was a good vibe with everybody. I mean, I don't know what they did with the other theater. They sold that out. But if you consider...
They said they did, yeah. They were trying to get a third theater, in fact. But I don't know if they got that together.
What I think is cool is, I mean, our theater had to have been at least 1,000 people.
It's a lot. Actually, they said they put out a number. I can't remember what it is. No, not 2,000. No, I think it's probably 1,000.
Our theater was 1,000.
Yeah,
it
was a big bottom area.
You think there was 1,000 people there?
Yeah. Again, in the interview I listened to this morning with Elmer Duke, the director of the movie, was saying I think it was like 1,000 people in that. That was a big theater.
Just that theater.
Just that
the other theater is another 1,000, because that's got to.
The other theater is a smaller one, I think, in the building.
Maybe a little smaller.
That was the big theater of that building. Yeah.
But then if you still had, so let's just say you had like 1,500-1,600 people there. And then you had another, like, what did they said, like 11,000 when it was starting.
Just people viewing the Ustream.
The Ustream cast of it. that's a pretty good turnout for a launch of something like a documentary.
And it's only been a year too that they started getting this thing going.
Mm-hmm.
A year, 11 months. They said 11 months from production to post to showing. 11 months.
And it's also available online now. You can rent it. You can go, I think it's SiriusDisclosure.com. That's where you can get to rent it or buy it or whatever yourself and watch it now. It's available right now, the same night that we got to go see it. So,
like, and I'll probably I'll get a DVD just to support that energy, like to put my energy into something like that. Like I'll get a DVD and it's something I could send to somebody or watch with somebody else or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think it could very easily get, this year I get like 1 million hits or something like that, get 1 million views. And that would be huge. That'd be a game changer for stuff of that nature to like start getting that kind of attention.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So do you guys have any closing thoughts?
Overall, I thought it was very, very well put together, and it is a good piece that people who have questions and people who want to be informed on the topic should definitely check out, and they should go in with an open mind.
Yeah, I think an open mind is a really good thing because again, I think people, I found tend to shut down when they hear Greer's name come up now, and Wilcox's name, for example, same thing. They go, oh, they roll their eyes.
I think that's a very small majority of people who feel the desire to speak out.
Every time I see a post on Reddit about something about Sirius in the last few months or something about Greer, besides the downvote cannon that comes out, I just I already know what all the comments are going to be in the thread, and it's just like.
Wouldn't you agree though? The downvote cannon, which is a great term for it. Those are the people.
Did you just make that up,
dude?
The downvote cannon.
There's a GIF of a guy shooting upvotes out of a cannon, and I thought of the exact opposite.
The downvote cannon. That's awesome.
But it's just like I have no desire. I have no desire to throw my energy into that and fight.
Oh, I don't. It's
the equivalent of like, if it would be like me trying to fight a bunch of fourth graders or something like that. Like I just don't care. Like I just don't have any energy for that. So I feel you're unfortunately left with a lot of people who are intent to prove somebody wrong. So it's so easy for the downvote cannon to come out because not that many people are gonna come up and defend you, man. I'm sorry. I should be doing it.
No, I don't. I don't get involved in those discussions.
Cannon.
Those discussions anymore. But I do think I enjoyed the movie quite a lot, and I came in with an open mind, and I was satisfied.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of what I expected it to be. Kind of what I was hoping it to be. It kind of came through. I was kind of worried it would be, and I was a little worried based on the lecture we saw that it wasn't going to come through.
I know, man. And I know. I was a little nervous.
Question. So I know that Damien and I were in the movie.
Yeah, Damien's
There's a
in the
shot
movie
of
twice.
us in the movie twice.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were there too because you got excited. I saw you.
There's another shot where it's an aerial from when we were in that little lobby area once they finally let us inside and it was boiling hot. They got an aerial shot up from up there when they were starting to usher people into the actual auditorium area, and you can see I'm in front, you're right behind me, and then Damien's right behind me. So you can see us three real quick together, but
nice.
It's majority of the shots are you and Damien.
That's funny.
Jason, for the rest of time, for all of the universe, for all eternity, people will scavenge and come to this planet and like find like old things and they'll find this movie and they'll find you in this movie.
I saw the camera.
You
and
will
I
be
hid.
eternal.
I was like, oh man, don't get me on here. Don't get me. The guy with the UFO in his car standing next to me. Don't get me on here. Don't get me on here. Video is forever, and the dude is wearing like a sequence leather jacket. I'm like, no.
They're gonna. That's what they're gonna pull up on the future, like Jay Leno or whatever show of you. Like,
so, hey, right. we found a clip of you on a show here.
Yeah.
I see you're dancing next to the guy with the sequin jacket. What's up with that?
I'm like, dude, how'd you get all those rhinestones on that leather jacket? Is that bedazzled? Nice.
At least you're not wearing your grandmother's couch furniture.
Oh my god.
All right. I think we should end the show.
Do you have any closing thoughts, Geoff?
Closing thoughts. I thought it was a wonderful night. I look forward to this movie a lot, and I'm really glad with everything they did. They're never-ending like productions, and big thanks to Stephen Greer and
thank you.
Thank you.
Helping spread the word, spread the knowledge.